Welcome back to the Stockwell Eldredge Show. We're in our last segment here. If you're just joining us, we have an expert of panelists here. We have a lawyer, top lawyer at Messerly & Kramer in regards to LLCs, businesses, you name it, 1031s, all kinds of things. Nate Nelson, Thomas Jusela at Finance of America, and Don Doty with Home Place Inspections. And again, all massive amount of experience and know what they're doing. We're boots on the ground. They're on the ground every day working in the industry. And, of course, Don and I are doing that in the real estate world. And we've talked about LLCs, corporations, 1031s. We talked about programs that Thomas has available. Talked about tons of people getting into the industry and to be cautious when you're doing business with non-experienced people. I have a heart as well. We all do, right? Start to sound like Donald Trump here, but when someone comes in and it's your cousin or your nephew and they just got this job as a loan originator, or they just started their real estate classes and they just got done, and you want to use them to sell your $400,000 home, just know that there's a risk to that, and just know that you be willing to be okay with the risk, right? And if you're not okay with the risk, advise them to go in and say, hey, we want you to be involved. I don't want to kick you out. But why don't you go and talk to also partner with someone who's experienced so that you can go through this together? That will make it so that a disaster doesn't happen, causing a family crisis that could stand for decades, frankly, in some situations when something goes bad with someone that you or a close person that you know. So that would be my advice to everybody out there for that. But
yeah, and I think a lot of people don't understand what goes on in a real estate transaction, especially newer agents. They don't have the connections with the loan officers. They don't have the connections with the inspectors. They don't have the connections with other realtors usually. Yep. I mean, sometimes they do.
And if someone's winging it, or not winging it, but if they're doing it for the first time and someone else has done the same thing 1,000 times, there's going to be things that the person who's done it 1,000 times can see ahead of time, if you will, before they happen, instead of all of a sudden having something dumped on their lap that should have been probably noticed as a possibility of happening. I see that happen so often, and it's very frustrating when buyers are working with someone, or sellers, or they're working with the loan officer that doesn't know what they're doing, and then Don and I end up having to help out. Same thing, Thomas, with an agent who doesn't know what they're doing. You have to end up coming in being, now you're working as two parties in a transaction instead of the one party that they wanted you to be initially, right?
And some of those questions that they ask me, I mean, I'm not going to even answer them. I'll say you should really refer these questions back to your agent, because this is, the person that is the specialist, because I don't know all the answers, That's why people hire agents like yourselves.
Right.
I get questions sometimes just now because of this market where maybe like in the $200,000 to $250,000 price range, people are getting multiple offers on their home.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to, they can't tell one from the other. So I'm thinking like, my clients, their children are now selling their first homes or whatnot, and they're going like popcorn, but how can experience help, Don, you versus like what Jason was saying about a new agent coming out? When you gauge two offers, they might look the same, but one's a more credible buyer, perhaps?
Well, with the listing side, so if are you talking about the listing side or the buy side?
They're selling, they're the listing
right,
side.
Right, so on the listing side, as a listing agent, we sit down and we call the lenders.
Absolutely.
And we ask them, where are those buyers at in the process? Then we also find out, we grab a seller's estimated net, and we net out what those sellers are going to make with each buyer. It accounts for if there's closing costs requested, the amount down. If both offers are exactly the same, but one has more down, that's a stronger offer. Or more earnest money, it's a stronger offer. Or if they've included a letter,
yes,
that is also huge, because then the sellers kind of get to know who's offering on their property.
And you know what else it is, too, is that we may know, chances are, one or many of the agents that are submitting the offer. We know their reputation. We may know the company that's submitting the loan or the lender. We have had great experience with them or bad experience with them. And we are obligated under our fiduciary to say if the seller asks, hey, what do you think? Or, well, we know that this company is known, their record of closing is they close 85% success rate on their transactions. Okay, not good, right? You want to know that as a seller. So you might want to take this company that closes 99% of their transactions, that we may know or have experience with them. And that also comes to relationships and experience in the business. Another thing I want to say, too, is we all start new at some point. So I don't want to tell people, hey, if you're new, screw you. We're not saying that. We're saying if you're new, have the humility to. What I would recommend for agents especially is if you're new, don't go on and take the world on by yourself. Have the humility to go on and be of service to someone who's experienced for a while. The things you reap from that, if the 2 years you're giving to that person as working with them or shadowing them, learning their experience, and we're looking for people at our office for sure that are qualified. And when I say qualified, motivation is the number one qualification in the real estate sales world, that can shadow, work with us, and then eventually you will go on your own. We know that the relationship will sever at some point, probably, if you're, as you get going. But you have to start somewhere if you're brand new, and we would encourage you to shadow and not try to learn the hard way on your own, where it could actually cost you your license or could cost you relationships with people.
Or a lawsuit.
Or lawsuits, yes.
One thing too, working with Craig Weitz. So Craig Weitz is on our team, and Craig.
He's great.
Yep, Craig's
awesome
got a loan with Thomas, and he wasn't scared to admit things that he didn't know, and he always said, I'll find out.
That's the key.
Yep, I've been mentoring him. He's an excellent agent.
How many of you
excellent agent.
How many of you have heard someone say, you ask a question and then they tell you an answer, and then later on you find out that answer is not correct, but they told you an answer just because that they felt like they should tell you something, when instead of they didn't say, like Craig says, I don't know the answer to that, but I will find out the answer to that for you and get back to you. It's far better than just winging it and saying the answer that may be incorrect.
Yep. So, or you just say, I don't know. That's it. You have to always say,
great question.
I'll find out.
Great question.
I'll find
out. Yes.
Yep.
Dawn, in my field, inspections, this is what I don't understand. I get customers calling me, what do you charge? Well, it's fine to ask me what I charge, but how about wondering what I know?
Yes.
What do I know? What's my experience? How long have I been doing it? Would you go to a cardiologist that just got out of school, or would you rather go to somebody that has been doing triple bypasses for 20 years? I'd go to the 20-year guy.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why people want to shop for price when I've been doing it for 25 years. A guy gets out of Home Depot, he charges the same as I do. Yep. So why would you do that when you're buying a house? I don't get it.
We get that a lot on the listing side for sellers. And unfortunately for all of us in every one of our industries, mortgage lending, real estate, legal field, and home inspectors, maybe more than others, but the consumer puts us into a blanket category, commoditizes us, is that a word? And puts us all as the same, and they just say, okay, all realtors are the same, whichever one gives me the best rate. But there's so many differences, and you got to check that out. We didn't get a chance to talk about the gold thing, but bottom line is if you invested in gold, you own gold, you're looking pretty smart right now because it is up 25%. I think it's a safe haven. I don't know the market of that. I'm not into the commodities market. I'm more heavy in real estate, like Don said. But very, very good for gold. And I don't know what the reason for that is, because I'm not in that industry, but it's pretty good, interesting statistics on gold.
It's on the Dow. It's GG, Gold Corp.
Oh, really?
Just look it up.
Okay, cool.
GG.
Great information. Well, Don Doty, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Nate Nelson, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thomas Jusula, thanks for being here.
Nailed it.
Check us out on Facebook if you missed part of it, and on YouTube. I'm Jason Stockwell with RE/MAX Results.
And I'm Dawn Eldridge with RE/MAX Results. Thanks for listening.
Yes, we'll be back next week with a great show. And remember, love yourself and love others.
Our house, it has a crowd.